I enjoyed the show. I write songs. Our lead singer just quit. Then you'll need someone new.
I love the way you move on stage. The whole room belongs to you. Don't you see what you could be?
I want to give the audience a song that they can perform.
What's the lyric?
Ready, Freddie?
Let's do it.
You need to slow down, Fred.
I just need a bit of time. But if I don't have time? You're a legend, Fred. We're all legends.
Hey, welcome back to Bandwagon fans. I'm Jeff. I know it's been a while, but this summer has been pretty crazy for me. A lot of different things going on, including I'm going to introduce you to the new studio. I sold my old house, just bought a new house, and this is the new home of the Bandwagon fans. So without further ado, I'm going to show off the whole studio and introduce you to tonight's panel. Coming back after, what was the last one we did? Strangers 2?
Was that it?
Probably.
Yeah.
So we got so Jason Horseman, and again Scott Griesel, who was with me in my last video, which was all the way back July 4th. Won't you be my neighbor?
Oh,
so,
yeah.
so quick hello and
Hello out there.
I'm thinking how much Strangers and Won't You Be My Neighbor are alike.
Probably not. A lot less death in the Strangers 2. And today we're going to be talking about Bohemian Rhapsody. This is I can tell you right now that there is, if you look at the reviews, I think it's sitting right around 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audience reaction has been a lot higher. I think it did 60 million in the box office, so I might have to fact check that. And on this panel, we have the full range of opinions on this. So this is going to be an open discussion. Spoilers, we're not worried about spoilers. We're just going to start talking about it. And real quick, Scott, kind of give a quick background on where you're coming from and what your perspective is.
Yeah, sure. I think you want to talk specifically about the movie?
Not yet on the movie. Just
Okay.
kind of introduce yourself real quick.
So I run a company with my wife that's called Creatista. We do film and video production and commercial photography. And in addition to that, I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've done several that you've never seen. And have a background in film and video production going way back.
Yeah, and Jason?
Jason Horseman, kind of a pop culture connoisseur, historian in a way. I deal with pop culture. It's what I sell: vinyl, toys, comic books, posters, videos, all kinds of memorabilia. So I fancy myself knowledgeable.
Kind of an encyclopedia of post 60s pop culture.
I would say that, sure.
Yeah,
definitely. This band though, involving, that's the era there. Sure.
Yeah, and that's a good lead-in, because that's exactly when we start talking about this. That's exactly the perspectives that are going to come through loud and clear. So real quick, so this is Bohemian Rhapsody. This is the biopic of the band Queen. It's probably to more of an extent the biopic of the lead singer Freddie Mercury, played by Rami Malek. The other cast is, I'm going to probably butcher a couple of these names. Willem Lee was playing Brian May, Ben Hardy as Roger Taylor, Joseph Mazzello as John Deacon, and then Lucy Boynton as Freddie Mercury's first wife, or I guess his only wife, Mary Austin, and then Aidan Gillen as John Reed, their manager, and Alan Leach as Paul Printer. And we'll talk a little bit specifically about his character, but he was kind of their road manager. and love interest, or I don't know if we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. So starting with Scott. Scott, your overall impression of Bohemian Rhapsody.
So I really enjoyed Bohemian Rhapsody, and I thought in a lot of ways, I saw it before both of you did, so I'd seen it probably a week or so before, and probably a near perfect movie in terms of hitting its mark, which was Soccer Moms. I think when you look at the sort of the audience reaction to it, you get that they did really a masterful job of sort of meeting the expectations of the audience, of the majority of people who were going to come see it. And I think that, I think to call it a biopic probably isn't really right, because I think that it has elements of a biopic, but I really think that the goal, particularly when realizing that two of the former members of the band were producers, I think that the movie was really about mythologizing Queen and mythologizing Freddie Mercury, probably more than it really was saying something true about him. I do think they were trying to say something true, but it was more by it's probably a sanitized version, frankly, of what was really going on. And I think they did what they set out to do.
So perfect movie. Jason, overall impressions?
It didn't have enough for me as a fan of the band.
New studio mishaps.
Yeah, whatever there. It just I would have liked it to have just been more in depth with the way the albums were made.
Right.
The relationship that the band members really did have with each other. It was kind of like, all of a sudden there's tension and you didn't really know where it came from.
Yeah.
And
for me, I split that difference. Mm-hmm. Like, you're looking for a straight rockumentary about a band you love.
Sure.
Yeah. You're looking for a narrative story, the mythology. And I kind of come in where I was a little frustrated on how they tried to split the difference. Mm-hmm. So there were the beginning of it, say the first 90 minutes or so, to me felt like a made-for-TV movie. It felt like VH1 rock docs of, we have to hit 15 moments in Freddie Mercury's life. Here they are laid out. And it really wasn't until you got to the end, the Live Aid performance, and the breakup of the band, the rejoining of the band, and the Live Aid performance, where there was actually a narrative thread carrying one scene to the next. And I think we can all agree that the last 30 minutes of the movie was phenomenal.
Yeah, all the Live Aid, they really gave you that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so I remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember when that was on MTV.
So I know as we were watching it, you were sniffling, I was tearing up. The three teenage girls to my right were all choked up and crying.
Yeah, if you have any attachment at all.
The end of the movie was clearly impactful, and I think it's also, I think they would have been better served just doing a stronger version of the last 30 minutes.
Can I say something about sort of managing your expectations going in, which I think they did in a way, because they started the movie with the sort of walk out, the almost Spinal Tap-esque walk out to Wembley Stadium. So you knew it was going to end there.
Right.
I mean, that was, and I think that filmmakers in a way were saying at the beginning of the movie, okay, we're kind of putting a fork in the ground at this point, and we're probably not going to go any farther than that. They really didn't. At the end, right, they sort of summed everything up in a couple
the summary
sentences.
Bars, about all that. And that disappointed me a lot, because I personally, I was a big fan of their last album. Mm-hmm. So they didn't go anything into innuendo. Nothing about the Flash Gordon soundtrack.
Right. Yeah.
Liked that. Nothing about how they got together with David Bowie to do Under Pressure.
Right.
Put a lot on Bohemian Rhapsody, even to the point where they cast Michael Myers as the producer.
Right.
The first guy.
Yeah, that was fun. That was great.
I thought that was very a nice homage. That was very nice. But
it actually took you to a second to recognize him, didn't it?
It did. All of a sudden, I heard the Michael Myers.
He was tough.
Because I noticed in the beginning credits he was in.
Yeah, I knew.
Right.
Yeah, I had seen his name, so I was looking for him.
Sure.
Like, oh my God, that's.
And you're like, oh hey, it's Studio 54, Michael Myers.
Right.
You know, right.
So separately, I talked to you about this last night. We saw it last night. I talked to Scott off and on quite a bit today. And there's one scene, we didn't talk about it last night, but there's one scene in particular that for me highlights the issue I had with it. And that was the first montage. This was they're going on their big American tour. Yeah. It's, I almost expected to be playing Take It to the Limit or Eye of the Tiger over it, because it was just such a
everything
cliche.
Also happened very fast. It's like it opened up, he had the classic Saturday Night Fever scenario with his family. Right. You don't understand me. And he goes and he clearly looks like he's like kind of Brian Epstein in this band already. He's a fan. I forgot what their name was. But, approaches them, has the ego, has the confidence. And then it's like kind of just like he's with them. They're performing a couple times. They're in the recording studio, and before they're even done making the album, hey, I'm signing you guys.
Right.
It was very Hollywood.
You almost expect the big cigar.
Yeah, the big cigar, like, hey, you guys are going to make $1 million.
You guys are going to be big.
And I was telling him, too, right after we left the theater, it was very Doors to me.
Yeah.
You remember Oliver Stone, the Doors.
Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that in a second. Because he actually brought up the very same analogy for the totally opposite reason.
For the movie, not for that part. Right. Because I think that's probably.
But yeah, a lot of things just kind of.
So for me, that scene was the epitome of why I think why it felt like made for TV. I think so. In the scene, it was cutting from one city to another. We love you, Portland. We love you, New Orleans. We love you, Chicago.
That was kind of happy
and
hammy.
No change in the set at all. I say they spent all their money. They put all their money at the end. And
they put all the money on the prosthetic teeth. What are you talking about?
The prosthetic teeth, which we'll get to Ryan's performance. Or what was his name? Ryan Malek. We'll get to his performance in a minute. Sure. Rami Malek.
Right. From Mr. Robot.
Yeah. So I think they just put so much money into the Live Aid performance that they were cutting corners everywhere else.
Yeah, because that was amazing.
Yeah, it was.
The crowd there.
You think...
I want to argue that.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Strongly, because they know they're going to make a lot of money with this movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, when somebody sat down in some smoky room with the cigar and said, "Let's make a Queen movie,"
why haven't we done a Queen movie?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what I was thinking. It's like, really?
Be big.
That was never done. Yeah.
Go on and finish your point.
So I think that what could be read as, and I might be wrong, but what could be read as cheating some money out of that part of the movie, teasing it out, and then kind of putting it all into Wembley Stadium. I don't think that's right. I actually think that there was a conscious decision to go pretty low tech on that kind of montage, and in doing that they were sort of portraying like how that would have seemed to the band. Now I know it wasn't POV shots. That actually I think there were a few looking up to the audience in these small theaters, but the sort of the sameness of it from sort of one to the other, because they could save a lot of money and still make those look different. I think they did that whole sort of, it's almost a black box, and then you'd see like the names of the cities coming.
Yeah, I get the Spinal Tap analogy with that. Yeah.
So I think they did. So whether you like it or not, because you might not like it. It was least wild about that part of the movie.
I guess with me, I enjoy the music so much it didn't take me out of it.
Yeah.
Those parts.
Because
you were listening, you were hearing the music.
I almost laughed, and it wasn't even the only montage. I think there was 3 different montages like that.
Right. Yeah, I kind of hey, this is this part of Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody, and then this is this part. Yeah.
And your contention that they knew they were going to make money, they really didn't. This movie had a lot of troubles.
I heard Bryan Singer was day-to-day, didn't finish, right?
Bryan Singer, the director, Bryan Singer, left with 3 weeks left to shoot.
Mm-hmm. So the editing, he had nothing to do with.
Yeah, so they actually had to bring in somebody to he has sole directing credits. That's the way the Directors Guild works.
Right.
But he didn't even finish the last 3 weeks of the shoot, and I'm not sure who came in. I'm not sure who stepped in to replace him.
It'd be interesting to know where that sequence was shot too. In the like, was it early on? Because if it was early on, then it was clearly. And this happens with movies. If it's early on, it tends to be director's vision. If it's in the last few weeks, it tends to be kind of an can I swear? Kind of an oh fuck.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, I've got 42 more scenes to do. It's kind of Ed Wood, right?
Yeah.
We've got 42 more scenes to shoot tonight.
I get it. Yeah. Right.
So
you might be right about that.
Yeah.
To me, it's still, even in the face of that, it kind of worked because it seems sort of not inner to one person, but kind of inner to the band. So.
I mean, yeah, it's a very popcorn documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't antsy during any of it.
No, I wasn't antsy, but I was kind of, for the first 90 minutes or so, I was kind of like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What is everybody talking about? Because it was not mind blowing until we get to live. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that a couple more things that we all can agree upon. The performances of the actors, particularly Rami Malek.
Well, no, the look. I thought, especially Brian May and the bassist, the name escapes me.
Bassist.
They look dead on.
Not Roger Deacon.
John Deacon.
John Deacon.
Yeah.
Because I saw live footage just the other day. They look dead on. Those two especially.
Yeah.
I mean the drummer. They all looked like especially the Sacha Baron Cohen. I'm intrigued about how he would have been. Right?
Oh yeah.
If he would have done the lead.
So did you know that? So
I did.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you that didn't know, originally Sacha Baron Cohen was cast to play Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know Roger Taylor just did an interview, I think, where he said why Sacha didn't play the part, but he didn't.
But I mean, I thought it was good.
Yeah. A lot of times in biographies, you have to just kind of suspend disbelief and believe that Jack Nicholson is Hoffa.
Because I mean, when he was talking with the teeth,
it was so
kind of,
you didn't have to work to suspend your belief. They looked like them. They played like them. You felt like you were watching. It felt like you were a fly on the wall watching.
They moved like. They clearly
chemistry,
the actors had clearly done their homework.
Yeah.
The makeup people were on top of it. So those two things together. I think it was easy to fall into just sort of believing that you were watching them.
I'm not sure if the teeth were that big in reality.
Yeah, it's hard to like.
I swear, I saw some live footage. They didn't appear that big. But
yeah, and there were a few times when I'm pretty sure, like they did in, like with Johnny Depp and Blow, they gave him a bigger stomach and and I was watching his mouth sometimes when he was singing, and I was like, oh, they CGI'd that.
Well, no, I heard it was a mixture of his voice and Freddie Mercury. So he did some kind of mixing with both.
I'm just talking about the actual
how
wide his mouth open.
With the mouth.
Because I'm thinking
I agree with that.
There are a couple times where it was just like he was.
It was like CGI kind of like that.
Yeah.
With the old Black Hole Sun video from Soundgarden.
Exactly.
Remember?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, as long as they didn't use the Justice League CGI team.
Yeah, right.
But I think that I think the actors did a really creditable job, and if you weren't just giving them points for either being or not being those people, I thought the portrayal of Freddie Mercury was really quite good, particularly in some of the more difficult stuff. The things that we're kind of happy with the band and everything, but when we start to get into AIDS and
it was kind of a pretty big role for someone so young to tackle.
Yeah,
coming from TV.
Coming from just doing one series. So.
Yeah.
But even that scene where the actor that played Brian May was doing the solo, whether he was playing or not, I mean,
it looked like
looked like he was doing it.
Yeah.
It was all good.
Yeah.
So.
And just on a side note, it's so crazy that we're at a point where you don't even know that could have been Brian May actually playing,
right?
With Willem Lee's head,
right?
We don't know,
right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the characters. We all agree that the acting was phenomenal. The performance, in that sense, everybody knocked it out of the park.
I mean, I knew he had the relationship with the girl. you know, I knew that he wasn't just gay. I knew he had that, like, the whole career, that he met her first. And that's another thing that kind of reminded me of The Doors, how he had, like, how his Pam.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
How Jim Morrison had Pam. And
both, talking to you individually, you both brought up The Doors. And you brought it up last night talking about comparing the control that Ray Manzarek had over The Doors.
I think Brian May had similar
control Brian May had over it. And you were contrasting the Doors. You were pretty critical.
Well, I was looking at the two. I don't know if I was critical of The Doors. I think that I was saying that that Oliver Stone does movies and he wants you to look at the style before you look at the plot, because he's all about style. Sure, yeah. And this movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, there's nothing really in it that you look at. It's very traditional filmmaking.
Yeah, it is.
And so I think that's what I was getting at, is that, like, the door, like, you could turn the sound off of The Doors and it could be a music video for any song that was created.
I know that I've done that before, actually.
Yeah.
Growing up, sure, yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody, not so much. I mean, it was very traditional in terms of just the narrative structure, and I think it was just comparing those two.
Yeah.
So.
And the most recent biopic I've seen was Straight Outta Compton. And as I was watching this, I kept thinking back to Straight Outta Compton, but I think it was a stronger movie overall. But I think they both suffered from the same thing, where they just try to cram too much of somebody's life in one movie. Mm-hmm. Personally, I would rather find the moment in the person's life that represents who they are and tell that one story. But and speaking of where I think they kind of tried to cram too much in, do you know much about the character of Paul Brenner? So originally he was their manager, and then I'm not sure if it was ever clear that him and Freddie Mercury were lovers. I'm assuming
they hint at it strongly.
Yeah. But they
maybe not in a traditional pair bond sense.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And I think this is where Brian May's influence over this movie really took away from the movie, because the character of Paul was almost mustache twirling villainy. Mm-hmm. He was basically
even to the point where they really made an effort to point out how much the band did loathe him.
Yeah,
right. And the drummer, like,
basically,
get your hand off me, right?
Basically, Queen's Yoko Ono.
Right. Yeah,
he broke up the
Yoko,
band.
definitely.
He took Freddie Mercury away.
And I wonder if the breakup was that dramatic, where he just walked off in the rain like that.
And they did show a short clip of him doing an interview on TV where he was spilling the beans. So I think it's fair to say that the actual Paul Brenner was a dick.
Yeah,
I think that's safe to say.
Oh, I mean, you probably, that type of scenario, you could probably,
The way they portrayed that relationship, how I saw it, was they really took away Freddie Mercury's agency, and they never really showed why he was attracted to this guy in the first place. It almost seemed like he was a dude.
No, it's like they showed that scene where he hit on him and was like, kind of standoffish, and then all of a sudden they're bosom buddies.
They really portrayed Freddie as Paul's dude, rather than really saying, no, Freddie was his own man, and this was the lifestyle that he wanted, and Paul was part of that lifestyle. Right. I think they missed the mark on that.
I think you're right. For one, we can't know. I mean, nobody really knows, and Freddie didn't even know.
They did kind of make a point where he was very, like, alienated from everybody during his stint with this guy. Like, he was answering phones for him and taking all his messages.
Right.
And everything.
So he kind of, like, almost like a cult leader, sort of like carved him up. But given the fact and
then bringing people over, strangers like that, and kind of just throwing people on him like that. Yeah.
And if we mentioned before, I think the portrayal of the stuff that would be considered like the bad stuff, Freddie, like, passed out, and he was passed out, but he wasn't passed out in a pile of vomit, and he probably passed out in a pile of vomit sometimes in real life. I think it was oddly sanitized, and I think it's kind of like they were trying to tell the story, but it was still they're, you know, two of the old band members who really, you know, adored him, didn't want to completely throw him under the bus. And that was one of the places that I thought definitely made for TV movie.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, kids, if you do drugs, you might invite strange people over to your house and they could take advantage of you and you might have a hangover the next day.
It's exactly it. It's probably because they wanted this movie to be focused on Queen.
Right.
They didn't want a lot of the social politics coming into play here with a lot of his lifestyle.
But at the end of the day, it was the social politics that made the movie so impactful. What made, and so another thing, and we haven't touched about this yet, is from my understanding, Freddie Mercury had not been diagnosed yet when they did Live Aid.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
And that was
all I
really
remember
big.
is he announced he had AIDS just like a couple months before he died.
So
he left it a secret.
I'm gonna fact check that, but I remember seeing that.
I think I remember that right.
So, and again, that's the filmmaking side of it, where you're trying to tell the story, and you just have to kind of excuse that it was.
And we can't know if he told the band in the way that he did, because they are, when, you know, again, two of the band are producers on this, they are controlling the message, but I thought that was a powerful moment.
It was incredibly powerful, and that goes to what you're talking about with the myth making.
Yeah,
you know, whether it's true or not, it's true now.
Right.
You know?
Right, and that kind of, you know, in the face of, you know, what was happening with HIV and AIDS at the time, and then in the face of, you know, the years that we've had intervening where, you know, it's not a death sentence now necessarily than it was.
Right.
That it didn't mean that like nobody would touch, you know, now maybe people will still touch you or hug you or have you in their life. Back then maybe they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like that was like,
I had two gay uncles, and one died in '94 and one's still with us.
Right.
But the one in '94, he lived a fast life.
yeah.
You know, and that's why he succumbed early before they really had the medicine. You know, he lived a lifestyle like that. But very nice man. But I remember he knew Freddie Mercury was gay. I mean, you know, as soon as he went like mustache, short hair,
Right.
it's kind of people kind of knew without him saying anything. You know,
I mean, maybe the name of the band might have been at least.
and that was always the thing too. Yeah, that was always the thing too. Yeah.
So we're all cis males, but I don't know if you guys. I'll cut
You're
this
assuming
out.
a lot.
We've talked.
But yeah,
We've talked.
I'll cop to that. So
We talked about that.
Right.
But both of you actually have an interesting connection to the LGBT community. I don't know if you want to talk about it. If you don't, I'll just cut this part out. But did you want to talk about your uncle at all?
Oh well, my uncle Chris, he was a really nice man. He was a bodybuilder, and looked like Tom Selleck, and he would take me to Gold's Gym and you know, all of that kind of stuff. And you know, he was an artist, you know, a graphic designer, and he would do portraits and things like that. And a very talented man, but at the same time, when you're in that bodybuilding community, back then you shared needles. You really did. I had memories of seeing needles and things like that around that he would, you know, and going into the locker rooms of those gyms and stuff, and the needles and stuff like that. So I would think that probably contributed to him progressing quickly.
Yeah.
Is not just, you know, being a homosexual man and getting it early on because of that, but also the needle sharing, which from what I understand, you know, is the way more people got it than through sex, was the needles, you know. So
it happened a lot. For
sure. It was just rampant in the 70s. You know, so.
And you've been doing work with the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation for how long now?
Oh gosh, years. More than a decade for sure. So
I mean, and I don't really have a personal connection to that community like the way you guys do, but that was what made the movie impactful. Just another movie about a big band. We've seen it, been there, done there, but the story of Freddie Mercury and what he meant to that community, I think would have been a much, much more interesting and stronger film.
Right, and they didn't go too far down that road, really. I mean,
they stuck their toe in the water.
Yeah, there was some parties that they kind of played up in the movie, but. So,
kind of just before we do our closing thoughts, I just want to do a couple little cleanup on a couple items. So on Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at 61%. So critics are barely tolerating it, but the audience score is 94%. And then on IMDb, it's at 8.4. It has an 8.4. So audience overwhelmingly like it. Critics have been panning it, or are lukewarm on it at best. And then its production budget is reported at $52 million. So you don't see too many movies in that range anymore of, around 50 million. They're usually like less than 20 or over 100. But definitely not a huge budget movie. So closing thoughts on Bohemian Rhapsody?
I think it's worth going to see. I really liked it. Manage your expectations going in. It's not a documentary. It's going to Jason's point, it's going to leave some stuff out. If you're okay with some things being left out, I think you'll really like it. Performances were, borderline brilliant, and maybe some brilliance in the performances. And if you don't want to get Queen songs stuck in your head for the next month, don't go see it, because you will.
Yes, you will, except for Flash Gordon.
Yeah, with the lack of Flash Gordon and post Live Aid stuff, some dates kind of confused a little bit there.
Yeah. Kind
of said how 1980 and Another One Bites the Dust came before We Will Rock You.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a popcorn rock film. Meaning that at least a matinee, you'll enjoy yourself. The time goes by, and if anything, the music keeps it going.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there is the last 20 minutes, which is worth,
Yeah.
It's worth the wait. So it's a movie that's worth the ending, if anything.
And for me, kind of mixed feelings. The last 20 minutes are it's definitely worth going to see. Definitely worth renting, if not buying, on Blu-ray, and watch the special features. From what I'm hearing, they basically filmed the entire Live Aid performance, and the entire performance might show up on the special feature. At a minimum, they are going to have all of Queen's original performance on the Blu-ray. So definitely worth checking out for the final performance. But for me overall, it was a missed opportunity to tell a more impactful story. But that's kind of our thoughts on Bohemian Rhapsody, directed by Bryan Singer and Rami Malek. I've been butchering his name all night. Definitely should be getting a Best Actor nod, if not actually winning Best Actor. I can't think of, from what I've seen this year, I can't think of anybody whose performance was better than his. As I was turning off all the cameras, there were two things that were brought up that we wanted to talk about real quick. One
might even be a third thing.
Okay, so I'll start. Your wife Anna brought up the story of Jim Hutton, so in the movie there was a brief scene where Freddie meets Jim Hutton. And Jim Hutton basically is the one person who shoots him down.
Right.
Yeah, he's one of the waiters at the party.
Yeah. Actually, Freddie Mercury grabbed his ass. He's like, no, that's not acceptable. Acknowledged that he was gay and interested in him, but shot him down. Which really showed that he was interested in Freddie the person, not Freddie the rock star. And then at the end of the movie, Freddie grabs Jim,
knocks on his door on the way to Live Aid, right?
Brings him to Live Aid, and in real life, they spent the rest of Freddie's life together.
Yeah, like a little earlier in the movie, before he actually tracked him down, it showed him looking in the yellow pages, and there's like 20 of them.
Yeah, there's like,
and him
It had that same feeling like in Love Actually, when the girl and the prime minister finally figure out that they are really meant for each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very sweet.
Yeah. And probably a little mythologized. Probably not.
How you think? Maybe. Yeah.
But it was almost an afterthought for me, and I didn't think of it because other than the very end of the movie, it wasn't really touched on throughout the movie. It was almost like this portion of the video is almost like something thrown on at the end.
Yeah, it was like a little brief summary after the Live Aid and everything. But,
it was a blurb on a still photo while the credits rolled.
Right.
And then the relationship he had, what was the
Mary.
With Mary, how they made it a point, that she was there from the very beginning, and he took care of her even when he came out, and they knew and everything. And it showed the scene where he finally told her, and even then he was like, "I'm bisexual." He couldn't tell her, and she's like, "Just tell me you're gay.
Yeah,
I know you're gay." But he took care of her.
Yeah.
To the very end, he fulfilled what he told her at the very beginning when he put that ring on.
Yeah.
That you're with me forever. I'll take care of you no matter what. So there was genuine love, even though there was, it was just, he was genuinely in love with her, and I thought that was really nice that they made it a point to really, you could tell, I think Brian May really liked her a lot. They had a good relationship, probably. And then, but the true love was the cats, right?
Yeah.
So, you want to talk about the cats then?
If it came down to Jim or the cats,
right?
We know, right?
Because he had those babies from the very beginning. They were his poopsies.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
and I think all of us,
Yeah, we all have our cats and we love them to death.
Yeah.
And it even had those scenes like Liberace. It reminded me of Liberace with the Pomeranians. I don't know if you guys are aware. He loved his Pomeranians, And it reminded me the same thing with his cats, how he would talk to them and they all had their own bedrooms. Made it a point when he moved into his mansion, how he was telling his friend, this is this one's and this one. And so
do you think the
cats,
that was fun. Like at 9 o'clock, the cats went into their separate bedrooms and just stayed there?
You know what? Probably. The personalities rub off.
I've tried that. I tried having 2 litter boxes for my cats, and they just end up fighting over one of them. They, I don't. Everything belongs to every cat. That's just how it works.
Right.
You said there was a third thing?
Yeah, it just something else that had occurred to me. We talked about the end of the movie, the last 20 minutes, the whole Wembley Stadium piece. It was, in some ways, I just want to say, really masterfully done, and really feels like you are watching concert. Like, it's worth saying that to somebody who hasn't seen this. If you wanted to get about as close as you could to actually sort of being there. Some of the CGI was a little weak, and some of the green screen was a little it pulled me out of it a couple times.
Yeah,
just like
because you had mentioned that before I saw it, and the sky in particular to me was like really fake.
Right.
But I was cool with it.
Yeah,
it was
maybe
really
my eyes
cool
were a little off. I wasn't distracted. The guy that played what was the guy that instrumented the whole event? The Gildorf, or God, what was his name?
Oh, Bob
Geldof.
Geldof. That actor even kind of looked like him.
Yeah,
they did a really good job casting everybody, in the movie. Yeah.
And even that scene was a little ridiculous.
Well, yeah, when they came on, the phone started off.
Live Aid was going to make no money. It was going to be an epic failure until Queen started playing Radio Gaga, and then the phones opened. Yeah, come on.
But I will say, when they mention Live Aid to this day, I think that was the standout performance.
Right. Yeah. So it is, and if you go on,
if memory serves,
you can go and watch Mojo right now, and their 10 most important performances, and Queen is.
It's on that for that performance. Yeah. I remember it was a big deal, like MTV News and all that when it happened. They really made a big deal about that. So
I just saw something which I'm assuming was before this movie came out and around, but actually listing that as the best gig ever. In a list of 10 best gigs.
It looked amazing, right?
Yeah.
But he said Zeppelin even. So I would think it was just a one time because they were already broke up by then, right? By 85.
Right. Yeah. Zeppelin would come back periodically to do a show together.
Yeah.
A billionaire's birthday party or something. Or
was Floyd there too? Did they say Pink Floyd was there too?
I don't think Pink Floyd was there.
The Best of Britain was there, but
But REO Speedwagon.
Yeah, I liked that. That was kind of the standout band. They mentioned all these greats and REO Speedwagon.
But speaking of the CGI for Wembley Stadium, because of you, throughout that portion of the movie, I was playing Where's Waldo and trying to find the people that were copying and pasting.
Wouldn't that be funny if they actually did put a guy in a Waldo outfit?
Yeah. I'm sure there's a couple Easter eggs in that crowd.
But still, really just really well done, and that is I mean, hats off to the skill involved in sort of recreating that. Even, I mean, the lighting felt right.
Right.
I mean, they really had to study that.
I was watching the performance on YouTube before we went and saw the movie.
Okay.
And it is like uncanny.
Did he know? I mean, as far as the piano playing went, did he know? Did he learn? Was that real?
Oh, for Rami Malek, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have
okay.
no idea.
Because, like I said, if it was all pantomiming, it was very good.
Yeah.
The bass,
So I think typically what they do when they're editing those is they have a real piano player. Like rarely will you see actor's face, hands playing a piano.
Yeah.
It'll shooting over the piano at the actor's face, cut to the hands playing, right? So because
there wasn't any front view with.
You're not going to learn how to play the piano.
I don't remember. That's why I was wondering. I mean, was that him or
But you might learn just enough to do.
They say some actors can get pretty committed, to do something like that.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, it was all good though.
Yeah, yeah. So I think was there anything else maybe we missed?
No. That's it.
Yeah. Were you gonna talk about the prosthetic?
Oh.
Yeah, just the teeth. I mean, I did kind of notice in some scenes where he was going on and had a lot of dialogue that you kind of hear at it all. But hey,
yeah,
he can't help that, right? I want to say it was kind of overdone a little bit, though.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
All right, so that's kind of the tag, the overtime of our discussion of Bohemian Rhapsody. So thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for watching the video. One more time, I'm Jeff.
Jason.
Scott.
Get on the bandwagon.